Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and you people out there on Facebook or relaxing after a nice supper. And I've chosen a topic tonight to talk about. I'd like to generate some discussion, if we can, in amongst ourselves. And if we can't generate discussion, at least think about the topic. Now, the topic I've chosen for tonight is gratitude. Now, gratitude for me, my understanding of gratitude is that during our lifetime, it doesn't matter whether we're young going to school or whether we're working or working through our working life or after we've retired, we have to maintain a positive attitude. And that gives us a reason to wake up in the morning and to go on forward. Now, if we have a death in our family, it kind of shakes you up a little bit. We have friends that are going through that now, and I've gone through that, and several people we know. But we always have to maintain that if you wake up in the morning, no matter what age you are, if you wake up in the morning and you're able to put your clothes on, dress yourself, put your boots on the right feet, and you have running water in your home, a nice warm house, the roof don't leak, it doesn't matter whether you own it or whether you rent it, as long as you have a place to live. So you're not living out on the street, subject to the rain and snowstorms and the freezing temperatures. So we have to be grateful for where we are in life. We have to be grateful continuously. And I think it helps if we think about that maybe once or twice a week. Sit down, and you can take a piece of paper and a pencil if you want to do it that way. And just sit down and say, what do I really have? You know, even though I've lost my wife, a lot of people are losing their wives. Sometimes you meet somebody else and you get together with another person. But regardless of where you are, you still have to be grateful for what you have. Now, if you've got a nice warm place to live, and you have food, and you're able to prepare the stuff yourself, or whether you get Meals on Wheels, or whatever, and if you're driving a car, that is a skill, and we will maintain that until we can't do it properly anymore, and when they do the driver's exam on us, we may fail one day, and we've got to be prepared to give it up. But we have to be grateful. Every day when we wake up, we give thanks. Give thanks for having another nice, beautiful sleep. And give thanks for the ability to walk around and talk. And the ability to think. No, a lot of the time we're spending by ourselves, no. But anyway, you have to be always aware of the fact that we're existing. And our brain is functioning. We're able to think for ourselves. We can go downtown and have a cup of coffee, meet some friends, and talk to them. And it's a wonderful way to keep up with what's going on in life. And also, while we're doing that, we're talking to the people, and we're actually finding out what their age is, and we're comparing that with ourselves and where we are in life, and we're trying to measure to see whether we're about where they are, or are we losing a little bit? Maybe we're behind. We've lost a few things that we can't do anymore, and other people can. But it's not something we should be upset about. It's a normal part of aging. And I think we have to look every once in a while, we've got to look back. And sometimes I sit down and I think about how lucky I was as a child. We grew up on a farm. And growing up on a farm, I had my mother died when I was born, but my grandmother and my uncle raised me, and my dad came out and see me on a regular basis, and he got married again after 5 or 6 years, but he promised his mother that if she raised me, that he wouldn't come back and take me away from her partway through my growth, so she'd be able to experience me growing up. He kept his word. And then when she passed away and my uncle passed away, I went and lived with my dad for a couple of years while I was getting a place for myself to live, and that worked out very well. So I'm thankful for that. I'm thankful that I had a really nice start on a farm. We lived on a farm and we grew grain, and we harvested the grain, planted the grain and harvested it, stooked it and thrashed it. And we had farm animals. We had horses and cows and pigs and chickens and stuff like that. So I had some appreciation for the life of animals and poultry. And living on a farm was different. You know, we raised the crops, and a lot of the crop was fed to the animals, and we actually butchered and ate after a while. Anyway, I think it's kind of cruel, but you raise these animals up and they're food. Feed them up, look after them good, and then you wind up butchering them and consuming their meat. And also we grew our own potatoes and turnips, potatoes and turnips and carrots and all these things like that, spinach and stuff like that. And then we had an ice house out in the back of the farm. It was a building that was full of sawdust, and this is when you saw logs, you have the cuttings off the logs. So in the sawdust, there was space in the building. You move the sawdust back, and during the wintertime, you go to a dam, which is a big puddle of water, or you go down to the river, and when the river would freeze over, the ice would be sometimes 2 and 3 feet thick. So we had a gasoline-powered engine operating a saw, and it would saw blocks 2 feet square and about 2 feet deep, and those blocks then were lifted out of the water, put it on the back of a pickup or on the back of a sleigh drawn by horses, and we take it back to our home, to the ice shed, and you drag those blocks of ice in the shed and put the sawdust over the top of them and make a row. You should have maybe one row of 4, maybe 10 by 12 feet, and then put some 4 inches of sawdust on top, another row of ice, another row of ice, and sometimes you had like 4 rows of ice. The ice would actually be a total of about 10 feet deep. So that was put up in the wintertime, and it stayed frozen. So in the summertime, when we wanted to have some water, we would go and take a block of ice out of the watershed, put it into a barrel, a water barrel. Sometimes it would be a wooden water barrel, sometimes it would be metal. And you put the ice in there and it would melt, and you'd have really nice cold water. We didn't have flush toilets and running water. We had outside toilets outside, and they were a little bit interesting when it was 20, 30 below, because you didn't spend much time out there. And you had an Eaton's catalog, which was a really shiny paper. It wasn't like the normal toilet paper we have now. So now that being thankful is the fact that I grew up in that condition and know about the value of food and how we can actually collect food for ourselves if we want. If we get into a situation where we don't have a lot of food, we can go out and shoot game, go to get a license and go and shoot a deer or a moose and cut it up in pieces and freeze it and eat it. And if we have a little bit of a backyard garden, we can raise potatoes and carrots and stuff like that. So we can actually exist with less money. So by having the skills that we learned on a farm, I could actually go back and do that. So my uncle, when he was about 54 years old, one day he was walking around the yard whistling. And I said, "Gee, you seem all happy today." Well, he said, it doesn't matter how tough things go. And he was talking about the price of stuff. So the only really thing that he had to buy was some tea and coffee and some sugar and lard. We usually had that left over from pigs that we butchered, melted it down. So we had baking powder and flour so you could make bread. My grandma used to make bread and make biscuits and all that kind of stuff. And then when we butchered the animals, the meat was cut up in squares and put into jars, into glass jars that were 1 liter in size, and they were put inside of a pan on the stove. The pan was a dish pan. It was about, say, 2 feet in diameter, and these jars full of meat with the tops off was in there, and the water was poured into the container, the kettle, and boiled. So after you boiled that water on the stove for a couple of hours, it would actually cook the meat. So the meat was cooked. So that meat then was you put a rubber seal on top and a screw lid on there, and that's what they called canning. And that was preserving. You were preserving meat. So we preserved pork, and we preserved beef, we preserved moose and deer, and down in the cellar, we had sometimes up to 100 of these glass sealers full of, it would be cooked meats, and it would be also all kinds of vegetables. And then we had a hole in the ground. It was a storage area, kind of a building built into the ground. And we had bags of potatoes in there and bags of carrots, and we had our food stored in there. So the only time we had to go to the store to buy something, we'd have to go buy some flour and some coffee and tea and sugar. The rest of the stuff we had on the farm, we grew it all. So we didn't really need a lot of money then, because the money was the food we ate was raised out of the earth. We lived off the earth by planting seeds and things that grew that we could eat, and by growing animals and butchering them, and by going and hunting deer and moose and stuff like that, and we butchered them, and then we cooked the meat down and put it into sealers and sealed it up, and then ate it during the winter. Because we didn't have any freezers at that time. There were no deep freezers and no fridges. So we had to have the ice in the ice house to keep things cold. And once you opened up a jar of meat, you had to pretty well eat it, because otherwise it would go around and go stale. So it was a different life, but it did teach some appreciation for life, how to survive. Like going out in the bush by yourself and building a cabin and finding a deer or a bear or a moose or something and shooting it and either smoking it or cooking it down and preserving it. A lot of times you can smoke the meat by cutting it up in strips and just hang it over a fire and have it smoking. And by smoking it, it cooks the meat and it puts smoke in it, and the smoke smell of the meat keeps the flies away. If you don't have some way of treating the meat, flies will go on there. And today, if you have a fridge, if you have a propane-operated fridge or electric fridge, you can put raw meat into the freezer and take it out and cook it when you need it. So I'm really grateful that I learned all those skills living on a farm. It was a way of life, and in learning those skills, it helps us today. If you decide you don't want to live in town anymore, you can actually get a piece of property and have a small house and live and go back to the old days where you grow all the things in the garden and you hunt, and you can live on a lot less money that way. It's called living off the land. We have a lot of people that do that, and it's a good life. It means you don't have to have a bunch of cash. You can operate for less money and still survive. So we have to give thanks to those pioneers that taught us those things. So I give thanks for all the seniors and all the neighbors and friends that taught us all those skills. And we survived all the years with all the things that we learned. And I still maintain those skills. I may not want to go back and do that again, because we're living in an apartment now, and we have electricity, and we have a furnace. We don't have to cut wood and saw wood to burn it and keep warm. But we in fact have a pension. So in Canada, you get at age 60, you get the Canada pension. At age 65, you get old age pension. So between those two, it comes to about $1,300 to $1,400 a month. Now it's a little tough to survive on that alone, because most apartments now are leasing for about $1,200 a month. So if you get $1,200 a month out of the federal government and you don't have a separate pension plan, you're going to have to squeak by, because most apartments are renting for about $1,200 a month. That leaves you about $200 to buy your electricity, to buy your heat, to buy your food, any medical supplies, your glasses and stuff like that. So it makes it really tight. So we meet a lot of people. I'm very fortunate. I give thanks, and I'm very grateful that in 1959 I was started on with the highways ministry. And at that particular time, we were making less than $2 an hour, $15.36 a day, which was less than $2 an hour. But at the time we started, a lady came down from the office and said, "I just wanted to tell you how much we're paying you." It was $15.36 a day, which was less than $2 an hour. And then she asked me the question, "What do you want to do about your pension?" And I'm 20 years old. What the hell do I know about a pension? She said, "Well, in 6 months, whether you like it or not, we're going to take 6% of the money off your check, and we're going to put it into a bank account for you, so when you get old, you will have a pension." So I said, "Well, how much can you take?" And she said, it'll be 6%. So for every $100, $6. So I said to her, I said, well, how much can you take? She said, well, we can go a maximum of 10%. So that means for every $100 you earn, $10 goes into a retirement savings plan. So at the time, I was a young person driving a car and spending money going to dances and chasing girls and stuff like that. And I said, well, look at it. For me, that's only 2 cases of beer a month less. So I'd have to learn to drink less beer. I didn't smoke at the time. So for 35 years, I put 10% of every dollar that I earned into the bank for a retirement savings plan. Now, the positive part about that is now I have 3 pensions. I have the Canada pension, and I have the old age pension, and I have the work pension. And I'm very fortunate. A lot of people have the 3rd pension, are living a good life. But there's a lot of people who didn't put the money away, spend it on a lot of things. It could be smoking, or it could have been drinking, or whatever. But in fact, I was able to put 10% away, and my pension plan is really fine. And had I not done that, I would have been probably living on the streets or living out of a tent someplace under a bridge, because I would never be able to afford living into a nice retirement apartment. So I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for the fact that someone took enough time to explain to me the importance of doing a retirement savings plan. So in my travels now, I talk to young people, and I encourage them, if you go into a job, if you're onto a union job and there's a pension program, you're lucky. Stay there and work and work and work and get that in place. But if you don't have that, you can go to the bank and you can buy yourself a retirement savings plan from the bank and set it up as a separate plan. And they will every month take out so much money from your earnings, if you work with a bank, and they'll put it into a retirement savings plan for you. And I encourage people to do that. So in order to make that work, you've got to sit down and do a real close look at your wants and your needs. Now, if you're a smoker, yeah, I can tell you one thing. If you give up smoking and put that money into a retirement savings plan, you're going to really love it when you get old, because you'll be able to afford to live and you'll be able to do things like travel and enjoy your life. So I'm really grateful for all the people that had some effect on me, and I learned from on the way up. And like I tell my grandchildren, when you go to work on a job, go and find a bunch of guys that work on the job and take a look and find the guys who have gray hair or no hair. And they're the guys that have been out there working, making money all those years, and they know all the tricks. So get to be good friends with those people, ask lots of questions, and if you're kind to these people, treat them good, they will tell you how they survived. Say, how'd you get started? They'll tell you. And they're telling you things like I'm telling you now. Talk about a retirement savings plan, getting a steady job, and if you can, try to buy a house as soon as you can. It's tough today, but if you finance it properly, you can do it. So I'm encouraging people to try to get into a home if you can. You don't have to get for the most expensive one, but get one that's comfortable, or a trailer, and put the money into that, and save yourself some money over the years. And between buying a piece of property and a house, the value of that thing is going to go up over the years. So if you pay $100,000 for it, you probably get $300 or $400 down at the very end when you retire. Now that money becomes usable for you to buy a motorhome and travel and enjoy your life after you retire. My wife and I did that. After we retired, we bought a 28-foot motorhome and we traveled for 25 years. All over Canada, Alaska, Mexico, down the United States. Had a great time. Attended country music shows and did lots of good things. So the other thing that I wanted to really point out, that there's some things. Sometimes people have a problem deciding what was something to be grateful for. So being grateful for the training you got on the job, or any training you took at vocational schools. That's all a plus for us. And then there's also the senior guys on the job, the older people. And if you think back, you're climbing up the ladder of life and working, And there's always 3 or 4 people at levels helping you, explaining to you, do this, try this, do this, and you're watching what they're doing, and you're seeing what kind of a car they're driving and what kind of a house they're living in, and you ask the question, how did you do that? And they tell you, come and have a look and see what my place is, and we learn from people. And right now, I'm grateful for the people that I know. I've got friends and I've got family and some people that I've worked with. And we still sit down and talk about the good times. We talk about being thankful for having a job with a pension, and also a retirement savings plan, and also a medical plan, looking after our needs, our medical needs. And then we have also hospital services, nurses, doctors, and we have the ability to drive. And if you're lucky, in my particular case, I'm 79, I'm still walking and talking and driving, and I walk 3 to 5 miles every day, try to keep my strength in my legs up so I can walk. The worst thing that happens to seniors is there are some people who are crippled and cannot walk, and they wind up in a wheelchair or a walker. And I encourage people, if you can't walk a long distance, walk what you can. If you have to use a walker or a cane or crutches, do it and keep active. But if you're really active and you can walk 3 or 4 miles a day, in the wintertime you can walk inside of the skating rinks, you can walk inside of basements where the floor is dry, or inside the malls. A lot of people mall walk. But we have to keep our exercise up, because in doing exercise, we force ourselves to breathe oxygen, and it goes into our lungs and into our blood system, keeps our muscles and our joints free and healthy, and it keeps our minds clear because we got fresh air going into our oxygen stream, into our brains. So we keep our mind healthy, and we appreciate everything we get. It gives us the ability to drive and go down and have coffee, have a sandwich or have a snack and meet people, go to different things. We can go to ball games, we can go to music festivals, and go down to the local hotel or go to the cinema and enjoy that. So we're at the point in life where we should do our darndest to enjoy everything. Don't sit around and watch television. It's a waste of time. Try to talk to people, walk and talk to people and relive things and learn new skills. There's all kinds of new skills we can pick up. We can learn how to play instruments, learn how to sing, and learn how to knit, or learn how to use a bow and arrow, or learn how to run the computer. So you can go on YouTube and all kinds of things and write stories and have a great time. But we have to keep ourselves active, and we have to have an attitude of being grateful for where we are in life, for all the things we have. We have to be grateful for what we've had growing up, and we have to be grateful for all the things we had, and we have to be grateful for the things we still have, because we still possess a lot of things, and we can get ourselves a lot of satisfaction from some of the things we do. Pardon me. And visiting with friends and neighbors is a really keen thing to do. Keeps our minds sharp, and we see people who are probably not as well off as we are, so it gives us a better idea about what gratitude is about. Because if we can walk and talk and enjoy life, life is good. We're in heaven now. Probably not going to be any better. So have yourself a great day, and I hope you can chime in and come up with some good stories, or add some things that you do, or what are the kind of things that you're grateful for in life? Think about that and write them down, and let's get some discussion going. So have yourself a great evening, and we'll talk to you later.